All right, guys. The next topic I really want to talk about is really how the economy might affect gaming and what we pay for gaming and the value of gaming. And really, we know right now that PlayStation 5 is facing price rises. It's gone up around about £30 in Europe, APAC, UK, with the US staying the same. Xbox did respond and say they got no plans to raise prices.
Mhm.
But to be honest, they've also raised prices twice in India. Obviously, not set in stone. And I just wondered really if this is largely, driven by, FX weaknesses of the yen versus other
Yes.
currencies. As far as Sony is
It'd be
concerned.
the dollar. It has to be the dollar.
Yeah, we've seen Meta also raise their headset by $100. And I'm just wondering, what's this going to mean for new products? PSVR 2, which we kind of hoped would kind of roll in between, I would say, 300 to 500 pounds to make it kind of acceptable, palatable to gamers in general. And the other thing is, everybody's complaining about the £70 game. But are we set for another increase? I mean, that's the thing. Are we set for another increase? So, guys, I just wanted to get your views on this. Really, I mean, it's a bit of a dry topic as far as gaming is concerned, but you know what? It impacts everybody, doesn't it? And the way the economy looks, I just thought, let's talk about this. Hey,
I think
let's talk about it.
it's actually more important than we probably realise, because if you see the undertone in the whole gaming industry moving to games as a service subscription models, and off the back of that already shifting to all the studio acquisitions, plus there has been a speed up in a recession, which everyone knew was happening, and then inflation. I think that that whole storm together spinning around is is fundamentally going to change gaming forever. So I think it's a great topic to discuss. I think it's fundamentally going to change things to the level of the game design. Games
Yeah.
have inherently been more and more expensive to build anyway. Taking rather than taking a 2-3 year cycle, taking 5. Companies already trying to get MVP games out there and building out, proving the game works in a version 0.1. Take Grounded as an example. That's been out for 2 years now. Only version 1.0 just come out now, and it's flourished as a game from day one because they've built it up from been transparent of what the game is and built it around what the community want before they've mass marketed it. So I think it's going to be the headline for me is it's going to be short term pain with increases in prices because from inflation. I think there will be pain in terms of game prices going up in the short term, next 2-3 years. But fundamentally, the game it won't matter as much for the gamer when they're going to be playing against a subscription model anyway within the next 3 to 5 years anyway.
Yeah, I kind of do wonder if it hastens us towards this games as a platform, games as a service model, because it's for the companies who are investing the millions upon millions of pounds in developing games, they want something that's sustainable as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
less risk and all of that sort of stuff. And
Gamers like it. If you find a game that you fundamentally like, you want more content to come out of it rather than have it,
correct,
because sometimes it's painful as a gamer when you get promises of a sequel and it's not quite a sequel, and then they've tried to reinvent themselves and it's not quite, and it loses its way, and it's painful as a gamer for your
Yeah.
for
You
the
have to relearn a whole game mechanics and then all that sort of stuff as well. It's an investment. It's an investment of time, right?
yeah,
yeah,
So
that's right,
yeah.
yeah.
I think people forget that, right? That playing a game well is an absolute time investment. The mechanics, the feel, the muscle memory, all of that sort of thing. That's another investment.
How many sequel games flop? They put a number 2, a 3 on it, and it just, as a gamer, you're
Yeah,
frustrated. Like, why, why do this? It's almost like the developers, in order to meet the requirements of the studio that's funding them, to meet the requirements of the shareholder, have to add quotation new features to justify the next number on it, then therefore experiment with something they shouldn't, and then go in a complete direction and break the game.
Or some of them don't even meet the same features as they were even doing from the previous version. Just yeah, there's some crazy things that kind of go out there.
Yeah, what this theme now is it's like the work from home, which was going to happen over the next 10, 15 years anyway, and COVID sped it up. What was going to happen in gaming, I think, will get sped up with a recession, inflation now.
Yeah, because don't forget, I guess gaming, with cost of living, inflation kind of going up everywhere. Games and other things is a luxury. It's like an additional thing, right? And all the services, subscription models, some of those they'll have to cut back on too. So it will affect the industry, and offsetting that with price rises, it just means that it gets there's less accessibility to it, right? All these VR headsets and Meta, people just won't be able to afford it. You need stuff behind it to actually make this work. So just can't afford it. And some of the free to play games will probably be okay. Maybe it's fine, but even then, there's electricity involved in you even playing games, right? And people are complaining about that too. So there's multiple folds of problems here, and I think it just means that they're going to have less gamers.
I mean, psychologically as well, I think games as a service, microtransactions. I know everybody hates them. I know that everybody hates them. Can't stand the thing. Yeah. But the reality is, when you look at the amount of a microtransaction versus £70 for a game, it's a little bit more kind of acceptable, and you kind of you fine forget it.
Yeah, it depends on how much time, right? So this is where it's interesting. I've been obviously out of the three of us, I've been playing the most out of these these free to play games, and I've been spending some money, but not let's call it the £70 that you kind of said there. I mean, how many hours can you get out of a AAA title for £70 versus probably the amount of time I'm playing on a free to play game? Admittedly, I am spending the odd bit on some microtransactions here and there, but I'm probably not spending that 70.
Yeah. Or you spend less of it. Has to be an amazing game for you to spend that, or you wait for it to go on sale. And I think I'm pretty much in that mold now where I'm, unless it's just an amazing thing, I've just got no motivation to spend that amount of money.
Yeah.
Because I never get to it quickly enough. There's no point. I just don't get to it quickly enough. I just stockpile these things.
To actually answer some of these things, there's a shift in gaming type between generations, right? Like we like more single player games, and are more used to paying the £60-70. But if you're a youngster now in your 20s or younger, paying £60-70 for a game is you don't want to do it when there's so many free to play games that you've got used to. So the writing's on the wall for Sony, right? Microsoft have already gone to first party games, Game Pass. That's the future. Sony, we've already had the discussion on a previous podcast, are holding on to the single player first party games 60-70. I think that's going to quickly disappear. The other part of the conversation is the hardware. I think in the next 2-3 years the price is going to keep going up, and I'll be surprised even in these console generations now with the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, whether we'll get a when they come out with a slim version with cheaper parts, but they also reduce the price. I don't think we're going to get that sort of stuff happening anymore, or certainly not in this generation. One, because of inflation, but also because mobile phone prices have driven everything up. I think they can almost get away with it with the consoles because they're so cheap for what they are.
Well, they're probably still loss leaders, right? So I think even back in a few generations ago, they were making losses on these things, but they want to sell you the additional services around it, right? So I don't know if they're doing that on the PlayStation 5. I'd imagine they are, and they were forced to do the price rise because of the yen-dollar difference.
Yeah, I think right now, from the era PS4 through to PS5, they're getting closer to breaking even. they're less of a loss lead, yeah, or they get to profitability for the hardware a lot quicker than they used to. And plus, right, we're talking about what is less exotic hardware. I mean, it's it's x86, it's
PC basically. Yeah.
GPU that's out there, yeah, GPUs that are out there. So there's less of that. The R&D is still there, but the R&D is in partnership with a company like AMD. Yeah, so there's really less of that. But just touching a point Jay made about Sony and obviously Microsoft. See, I think that I think Sony will probably to some degree maintain this big £70 blockbuster sort of thing. But I think what they're going to do is double down on services again because they've got 10 of them in development anyway, right?
I think there will. The single player games. How long are they? 12 hours, 15 hours,
15
20 at a
hours,
push.
yeah, 15 hours.
We, as old fogies, right, have already got such a big back catalogue. But even if we really loved a franchise or game, are reluctant to spend 60, £70, and you would say that we're at an age where we can afford to spend that kind of money in a game, and we're
Yeah,
reluctant to do
well,
it. How long can they Sony realistically do that?
yeah. But when I mean double down, I just believe, right, that over time, given the state of affairs, that their main income source for games is going to come from services, platforms, as
Yeah, okay. So
game.
you are saying they are going to actually
They'll
go
shift the
for.
weight, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think they're reluctant to do the whole subscription thing, like a Game Pass, because I just think a subscription's a subscription, whether you subscribe to a service that gives you like access to hundreds or thousands of games, or what is subscription, or what is microtransaction model to get you access, to one game. Yeah, they're still making money,
Yeah.
and I think that's what they prefer. And over time, I mean, listen, we all know Sony don't really make that many kind of, let's say, single player games anyway in the grand scheme of things.
They
You
don't,
know,
yeah.
yeah,
But
they can afford to keep maybe certain franchises going that their main franchises, and maybe for those things they'll kind of follow this kind of like a cross media approach where there's a film, there's a TV show, then there's your game, and they can get away with stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah,
but their main cash cow, their perpetual, let's say, reliable means of getting regular income in cash flow is going to be through some sort of live service game. And they just need a few of those guys to hit home.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
And
depends
they
on
are
which one.
winning, man. You know what I mean? They
yeah.
don't need Game Pass necessarily. That will be kind of Microsoft's and Xbox's model. But the one thing about Game Pass is that you need games.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing that I would say, that's interesting.
We're going off slightly off topic a little bit, but I think that's the reason why they've obviously bought Blizzard, because they probably have low confidence on converting their games to fill that games as a service model to support their Game Pass. But coming back to the economies of fail, if you look at the constraint in the supply chain and people going nuts and paying for cars and paying 10%, 15% over list price, it can be even 20% or 30% for luxury cars like a Porsche. I kind of see, that with all the hardware and the price increases, even if they bumped it up another 50 quid, I think they can get away with it. People like this, they can't produce enough. They're going off the shelf so quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think demand's down. Like, I mean, I'm sure I can get a PS5 if I want to now, but I'm not. I'm still not.
You can't, because I asked when I went
Really?
to get Smith's Game Store. They're just still not. You can't get them. It is getting easier, as in like I think Sony are doing now. It depends what country, but I think the UK, or might be in the US, right? I heard that you can get in a queuing system to get it direct from Sony versus any ballot type
Yeah.
prize draw type ticket.
I've definitely seen it much more available because there's been a few opportunities where I could have gone, and I'm like, nah, I wasn't. There still wasn't anything that was grabbing me enough to go and get it. Even with the announcement of the PSVR 2.
I think I read some article or saw some headline saying they've got 400% more stock. But when when you've been denied drinking water for such a long time, and you've been walking that desert, that drinking water is going to disappear rapidly.
Yeah.
So
Well, wait till come in. Like you still, even though they've increased the supply, I think there's enough demand that they're still flying off the shelves. Come Christmas, it's gonna extend out into next year. I think mid next year, I think will be. You can walk into a store and you'll see one.
I don't think things will be the same way as they were.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't actually. I mean, because AMD and people like Intel, they've been making noises about shortages, and that sort of thing. So, I just think when you have a big machine like this, kind of, I mean, and the machine isn't just Sony or Microsoft; it's just kind of this whole kind of ecosystem, multitude of companies doing different things for each other. And when that slows down, it kind of takes a long time for that to kind of like, for you. It's like cranking the motor on one of those old kind of like cars where you kind of turn the handle before it kind of like.
Yeah.
I see things improving next year. I just don't think it will be the same.
No, stock's not a problem. If I want to get one right now, so the digital one that I can't get, I can get the normal one. There's loads, like Game Shop 2. I can see loads of them already right now.
Oh, they're there. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing angle on this is that it's not only that we've got them in shops, physically in shops, right? You need to produce the kind of technology in chips, and all of these things get manufactured separately. There's not one Sony or let's say Microsoft factory that basically just churns out everything that is in Xbox or PlayStation. Yeah. So I mean, I hear rumors of Sony and Microsoft producing, their slimmed down versions. There's the chips, right, to make it easier to produce. And then I also hear that there was a rumor that Sony were producing something with a detachable Blu-ray player or something. But to me, that just speaks to we got to find a way to manufacture these things a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Well. Plus, there's also a political environment as well. Isn't the US trying to like sort out doing chips themselves in the US rather than being reliant on China and Taiwan?
Yeah, I think it's more of a play because I think they're kind of worried about the whole Taiwanese and Chinese situation. So it's not that they're not worried about Taiwan per se, but they're kind of worried about what might happen to Taiwan. For a country like the US, which actually has technology leadership, part of the kind of power of that country is because they're the leaders of technology. Yeah, for them not to be producing their own chips, I mean, come on. I mean, that's a no-brainer, surely. I mean, come on. You can't be the leader, in technology, not produce your own, not fabricate, your own chips or anything like that. That's just absolutely ridiculous.
They got the IP and the ideas, and that's it, and then you just get someone else to print it for them.
Yeah, but when someone else does it, they've got you over a barrel, haven't they? So we've kind of like spun off onto all different sorts of facets of conversation, but when it's all said and done, these decisions will be largely driven by how the economy looks, whether prices go up, inflationary kind of like factors, all sorts of things are like that, supply, demand, whatever it is. Whether we follow specific models for people to consume the games, the economies dictate how much companies can spend on developing a game, because games are already expensive, and these are all factors, and the habits of gamers as well, largely driven to the amount of disposable income we have. And if one day, right, I find out, paying even £50 for a game, because that's not a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, is it? Like, it's £50 for a game that I might not pay for 2 years, right? I might say no to that. I mean, I might just say, look, give me Warframe. I'm not going to pay £50 for that.
Joe, here's a thought for you. We're going back to arcades. Are we getting the latest stuff in arcades? Because consoles were off the back of arcades being too expensive, and you can play as to your heart's content at home. Are we moving back?
That's an interesting thought, Al, and you hold that thought, right? But I think gaming's too much of a social, online social at least, even living room activity for us to
Yeah.
necessarily go back to that model.
There's no way. Like Tekken was like they used to release their games as their MVP for the arcade. They said they're not doing that anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way. I don't think so. But the arcade itself might evolve into something else. That's the other thing. It doesn't nothing necessarily stays the same. And that basically segues nicely onto my next point. Given the economic backdrop and what it's doing for companies, gamers, prices, models, consumer electronics, and like there's this little thing from my kind of a childhood, game stores. And I thought to myself at the end of this, God, I used to love game stores. I used to love walking in there and being saturated by
Boxes.
gaming, boxes and gaming, and
But when was the last time you ever was in there? I honestly can't remember now.
That's
I
because
think I probably went in there to buy a Christmas present, maybe.
Yeah,
there are none left.
Yeah, but you because I've got young kids now. I go into Smith Toy Store, and they still have a gaming section there, kind of like a mini game store. And it's still nice to see the boxes there. You get attracted to games that you kind of dismiss by just seeing the icon on the internet versus the box being physically. You want to turn it around, and there's something nice about that. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna die.
Yeah,
But it's dead. Yeah, the point I was going to make is that still don't underestimate how many people buy gifts for their kids who just aren't interested in gaming and don't know much and still want to go into a store.
Yeah.
Hence why they always like. If you want to get a PS5 quickly, because I had a look on Amazon, and if Amazon don't really have any stock. You have to request. They've got some game bundles, but they're sold by third parties. They're expensive.
Yeah.
You have to buy £600-700 bundle on game, right?
Yeah,
but if you go to the physical store of Smiths, you're more likely to get a console.
Yep.
Because the game manufacturers want. They still sell a high volume of people rocking into a store like that, and I don't think that'll go away. But sorry, just this little segue. I don't know, I don't know if you guys used to go to like cafes where you could play online games, like
yeah,
like because they used to have like high-end PCs. You play Counter Strike or you play Medal of Honor. They were fun as well.
Yeah, the problem is that it never really took off in the UK because it's just too expensive. Like obviously South Korea and other countries, that was like almost bread and butter to quite a few of the kind of processes over there. But here, it was just too expensive. And actually,
I pay a pound an hour. I pay a pound an hour when I used to go.
I think the model would need to be different now. But I mean, and the whole game store thing. I mean, look, I'm not talking about game or GameStop. I mean, those kind of soulless, kind of like wall to wall of boxy game stores, whatever you want to call them. But specialists. Because I remember back in the day,
independent ones.
Yeah, my God, there were some good independent ones.
I had a really good one in Yorkshire. That was awesome. I used to go there all the time.
Yeah.
But then we used to, it was one of those ones where you get your that was the place where you trade in your games and secondhand games.
Yeah,
they were much better priced than your local game or anything else. So they were actually closer to it, and that was really good actually.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that model is not a profitable model, and you can't have many people doing it because it just doesn't. The market's not there for it. But I would really love it to evolve into something. To Jay's point, like these high-end PC gaming, venues, what they gave you at the time was something that you couldn't have at home. Because like not everybody could pay $2,000 for a PC. I kind of would love to see venues that just focus a little bit more on that. This is what you can't have at home. It's either some sort of VR setup. It's either some sort of, I don't know, LAN party environment with a
Yeah.
coffee shop that could make their money on it.
Tournaments,
they've
local
got
local
correct,
tournaments,
totally. That would be
I
the
would
value.
totally go to that.
They had some of those in London, actually. I'll send you the link to the
Yeah,
venue.
and
And
by
they
all
actually
means, sell food, sell alcohol
they
if
do
you
that.
have
It's,
to.
yeah, it's literally like a pub venue. So
Yeah,
they have it all. In London, they have it.
Maybe that could be our new business venture, which is like create a franchise, which is like a gaming calf social thing.
yeah. I mean, but you'd have to offer people something that they couldn't have at home. That's the thing.
like
Yeah,
like hardcore drugs or something like that.
yeah.
Kind of in the back room.
The gaming would be the drug. In the back in the back room, have some sort of like gaming shop, or a museum or whatever it would be, just but something you could have for venues. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. In the more it goes on, obviously, because the young will get old. Who knows? You could offer a corporate events.
So I reckon that you could, if you did a mix of, really massive off piece, but if you did a mix of, we're going to watch this new trailer or this Microsoft or PlayStation conference as a collective. A new game
Correct.
comes out, you can watch someone play it, or let's have a tournament, or let's all just play an old LAN party game or something, or let's have
Esports spectator, be a, something along those lines, if you know what I mean.
yeah, I
Have a
can,
large VR venue where you could, walk around in, because there are kind of like experiences like that, that
But I
sort
don't
of thing.
know. I mean, we're probably past post-COVID, but swapping headsets might not have been too.
It'll
Too
come back,
good.
it'll come back. Yeah, I mean, obviously, that whole kind of like hygiene thing is a bit difficult. But look, I just think, look, out with the old, in with the new. Look, with that said, I think we should kind of wrap up this topic. So, obviously, the economies have failed. The economy is in dire straits now, globally, no doubt about that. And it will impact gaming. We will see gamers' habits to potentially change. We will see the people who sell us these gaming experiences and the associated hardware, their habits will change. And, we better get ready for that. You know,
change is good.
change is good, exactly. But I'd like to think with all the change happening, there's still a place for the good old game stall. Yeah, but not, definitely not.
To the
Basically,
moon.
as yeah,
To the moon.
potentially something new. Something borrowed. Who knows? But I mean, it's a nice thought. That we might be able to get something back close to resembling something that used to make us feel good when we kind of like started off gaming. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the next topic.